إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. As we continue to see Dr. Tahir Wyatt continue to lower himself from a status which once he was seen by some of the people of knowledge as a promising student and future da'i who would one day return to his land and call the people to Islam and be one who propagates pure Tawheed and Sunnah, free from innovations and desires. But unfortunately, we've only seen from him since his return from Saudi Arabia, his departure from the path of the ulama Rabbaniyun, who cultivate the people upon Quran, Sunnah, and the methodology of the Salaf, with a clear and ambiguous call. We've only seen from him cooperation with Ikhwani Masajid and Ikhwani organizations, perhaps with the claim to call them to the truth or aid them in their calling people to Islam. However, in reality, these masjids, these organizations, have not changed in the slightest since his affiliation with them or lecturing among them. And here we would like to focus on his affiliation with the Ikhwani organization Yaqeen Institute. Not only his cooperation with this organization, but his staunch defense of it and his founder, and at the same time his distance from the people of the Sunnah and their masajid. And this in reality shows us where his wala, his allegiance lies, and that it is with the people of innovation and misguidance. And in order to make what I'm saying a bit more clear, I like to isolate a part of a recording, and a person, if they like, they can listen to the whole interview if they choose so, where Dr. Tahir Wyatt is asked about his affiliation with the Yaqeen Institute, this Ikhwani organization that has all types of balaya, fears of misguidance with them. And he goes to great lengths to defend the institute and its founder, an individual named Omar Suleiman. And this reminds us of the well-known statement of Sufyan al-Thawri when he went about to investigate the affair of Rabi' ibn Subayh. And the people said about this Rabi', Ma madhabu illa sunnah. His way is nothing but the sunnah. Then Sufyan, he asks, Man bitanatuhu. Who is his inner circle? Who are those that he keeps company with? They said the Qadariyah, those who deny the Qadr, the divine decree. So Sufyan, this great Imam in the Sunnah, in his time he replied, إِذَنْ هُوَ قَدَرِيٌّ. Then this man too is a Qadri. And as Imam Ibn Battah, he mentions, as he collected this in his book Al-Ibana, نَطَقَ بِالْحِكْمَةِ فَصَدَقَ. Sufyan said words of wisdom and he has spoken the truth. So in this particular clip, Dr. Tahir Wyatt is asked about the Yaqeen Institute and how his alliance started with the Institute, and his response to some of the criticism directed towards him about working with them. So he goes on to explain how he began working with Yaqeen Institute, and he seeks to justify the good that Yaqeen is doing to call people to Islam or back to Islam. But what caught my attention in particular is some speech that Dr. Tahir tries to use from اقتضاء الصراط المستقيم مخالطة أصحاب الجحيم by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. And this is a book that I'm very familiar with. All praise is due to Allah, because I translated its summarization by Imam al-Ba'ali in totality. And I've read the different explanations of the ulama on this book, such as Ibn Abbas and Al-Uthaymeen rahimahumullah and Al-Fawzan hafidhahullah. So Tahir says, while justifying his cooperation with this organization, and we'll play the recording.
When we realize that, alhamdulillah, we're all playing for the same team, we have different roles, right? I mean, I know a little bit about basketball. I grew up on basketball, right? So, you know, you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? Like I was talking about. He's 7'2". You know, he's supposed to be down there by the basket. Not supposed to be somewhere shooting 3 points. And he definitely shouldn't be dribbling the ball up the court because somebody's going to take the ball from the other team. That's not his role, right? His role is to be down there, score those points down by the basket. And so I think that what has happened for us, man, unfortunately, is that we follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us not to do. Allah says in the Quran, قَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ لَيْسَتِ النَّصَارَى عَلَى شَيْءٍ وقالت النصارى ليست اليهود على شيء وهم يتلون الكتاب. Right? The Jews said that the Christians, they're not on anything. And the Christians said the Jews are not on anything. Well, who gets one of the tab? They read in the book. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, when he talks about the imitation of the people of the scripture, a lot of times we think about imitating people, we think about in dress, we think about, okay, don't wear a cross, we think about external manifestations of that imitation. Shaykh al-Islam talks about the internal as well, the internal manifestations, the mentality. Don't follow them in that mentality. Just because these people don't see it the exact same way that you see it. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. They've got a lot of good that they're doing, just because they don't see it the way that you see it. So the reality is that that we have to recognize that we have different roles that we have to play, and that we're all, inshallah, we're all fighting for the same thing, and that we're all on the same team. Now, I went into a long digression and forgot exactly what I digressed from. So I need you to bring me back to the point that I was.
Don't worry, I'm not letting you get away that easy, Sheikh. I was basically asking about your kind of work with your
I
team.
remember that. John, I remember now. So let's just go back for a second. So looking at this, I'm saying this because I'm intimately aware of why Yakin Institute was founded. Like what the catalyst was. So
we say in response to this, yes, imitating the disbelievers and having the traits of the disbelievers is not just something that is just manifested externally and not just restricted to clothing or dress, but it is also what is held internally. This is correct now. And Shaykh al-Islam, he does mention the verse quoted by Dr. Tahir Wyatt, the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah mentions, وقالت اليهود ليست النصارى على شيء قالت النصارى ليست اليهود على شيء وهم يتلون الكتاب. The Jews say that the Christians follow nothing, and the Christians say that the Jews follow nothing whilst they recite the book. But listen to what Shaykh al-Islam, he says in explaining this verse. Shaykh al-Islam, he says, فأخبر أن كل واحدة من الأمتين تجحد كل ما الأخرى عليه وأنت تجد كثيرا من المتفقهة إذا رأى المتصوفة أو المتعبدة لا يراهم شيئا ولا يعدهم إلا جحالا ضلالا ولا يعتقد في طريقته من الهدى شيئا وترى كثيرا من المتصوفة والمتفقرة لا يرى الشريعة ولا العلم شيئا بل يرى أن المتمسك بها منقطع عن الله وأنه ليس عند أهلها مما ينفع عند الله شيئا وإنما الصواب أن ما جاء به الكتاب والسنة من هذا وهذا حق وما خالف الكتاب والسنة من هذا وهذا باطل. Shaykh al-Islam, he says, here Allah informed that each of these nations reject whatever the other asserts. Similarly, you will find many of the students of religious knowledge, when they see the Sufis or the ascetic worshippers, the Muta'abbida, they do not consider them to be upon correctness in any respect. They only see them to be misguided and ignorant, and that their way is void of any guidance whatsoever. Likewise, many of the Sufis and the Mutafaqqira, who's a sect of the Sufis, they do not consider seeking legislative rulings and religious knowledge to be a correct way. They believe that those who adhere to that is in reality remote from Allah, and that those who follow that do not possess what will benefit them before Allah whatsoever. However, the only correct position in this regard is knowing that whatever the Quran and Sunnah has come with from either path is truth, and whatever opposes the Quran and Sunnah from either path is falsehood. The Imam and former Grand Mufti of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz rahimahullah ta'ala, he likewise comments upon this portion of the book. And he says in his commentary, he says, يعني يجب على الطائفتين أن تقر بالحق وتنكر الباطل فعلى المتصوفة والمتفقرة أن يقروا بالحق الذي عند أهل الشريعة وأن يعترفوا بذلك ويشكروهم على ذلك وعلى أهل الشريعة إذا كان عند المتصوفة حق أن يقروه ويعترفوا بأن هذا حق وينكر عليهم ما هم عليه من الباطل فلا يقول كل ما عندهم باطل مثل يهود والنصارى فكل واحدة تجحد ما عند الأخرى. Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, says, it is incumbent upon each group to acknowledge the truth and reject falsehood. So it is upon the Sufis and the Mutafakkira to affirm the truth that is with the people who possess knowledge of the Islamic legislation, to recognize it, and to thank them for that. Also, it is upon the people who possess knowledge of the Islamic legislation to affirm the truth that is with the Sufis. This is, if there's any to be found with them, and to acknowledge that it is truth, at the same time rebuking them for their falsehood that they are upon. Look what Sheikh Ibn Baz says. At the same time rebuking them for the falsehood that they are upon. He continues and he says, so one should not say everything with them is falsehood, as is done between the Jews and Christians, where each party rejects the truth that is with the other group. And that's the end of the words of Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz rahimahullah ta'ala. And Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymin rahimahullah ta'ala says regarding this point in al-iqtida, under the same ayah, وقالت اليهود ليست النصارى على شيء وقالت النصارى ليست اليهود على شيء. Sheikh al-Uthaymin says خذ الحق من أي إنسان كان سواء من المتصوف أو المتفقه أو غيرهما. Up to the point that he says أما التعلم على أيديهم يعني المتصوفة فلا لأنه ربما يغريهم فيستمرون على ما هم عليه ويغر غيرهم أيضا يقولون فلان يدرس على فلان ويتلقى عن فلان فيحصل بذلك لغط كثير. أما قبول الحق فأقول اقبل الحق من أي إنسان حتى من اليهود والنصراني والمشرك. Sheikh Uthaymeen says, rahimahullah, accept the truth from anyone who comes with it, whether it be the mutasawwif or those who seek religious knowledge or others. Up until he says, however, as it relates to learning knowledge from them, meaning the mutasawwifa, fala, then no. Look, as it relates to learning knowledge from them, then no. Shaykh al-Uthaymeen says because perhaps this may falsely cause them to believe that they are upon the truth. Look at this. And thus they continue upon what they are upon from falsehood. And he says, and perhaps they would deceive others as well. It will be said, such and such is studying with such and such, and is taking knowledge from fulan. Shaykh al-Uthaymeen says, then afterwards, much confusion will take place. But as for accepting the truth, then accept the truth from anyone who comes with it, the Jew, the Christian, or the Mushrik. Nah, and that's the end of the words of Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah. We accept the truth from whoever comes with it. Why? Because it's the haqq. Because it agrees it agrees with that which we know to be the truth, either being confirmed in the Quran or the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So look, how much more so when you have a PhD graduate from the Islamic University who goes and sits on platforms with liberal misguided organizations such as Yaqeen and then makes videos in defense of them, or interviews, goes on interviews in defense of them and alludes to that they have benefit that should not be overlooked, incorrectly using evidences from the Book of Allah, as he did with the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, saying not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Everyone has a role that they should play, to the end of that. How much confusion will take place because of this if it comes from the like of him, a graduate, a PhD holder from the Islamic University of Medina? But what is correct is that knowledge should not be taken from them in the first place. And any good they may have, that it is countered by a greater harm of them, by a greater harm of them calling the people to misguidance. And any good they may have, that it is countered by a greater harm of them calling the people to misguidance, and bringing people on their program who make statements of kufr, and them allowing all types of innovators in their organization. The overall benefit is that they be abandoned. But unfortunately, some people only see dunya. They're not concerned with safeguarding the belief system and the hearts of the Muslims. Also, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, he said about this same ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah in his commentary, اقتضاء الصراط المستقيم. He said, قالت اليهود, and he quoted the ayah, المقصود في قوله تعالى, that which is intended by the statement of Allah, وقالت اليهود ليست النصارى على شيء, وقالت النصارى ليست اليهود على شيء, that which is intended by the statement of Allah. And the Jews say the Christians are not upon anything, and the Christians say that the Jews are not upon anything. He said al-inkar, لأن كل من الطائفتين يجحد ما عند الأخرى من الحق. وذلك من أجل أن ينتصر لنفسه حيث يعتقد أنه هو وحده على الحق وأن غيره على الباطل، وهذه مصادمة للحق لا تجوز، بل الواجب الاعتراف بما عند الآخر من الحق وبيان ما عنده من الباطل. شوف، هذا هو الإنصاف والعدل. فإذا ما اختلف المرء مع الآخر فالواجب أن نقبل ما عند الآخر من الحق. Sheikh Salih Fawzani says, what is intended from the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the Jews say the Christians follow nothing, and the Christians say the Jews follow nothing, while they both recite the book, what is intended is rejection, al-inkar. Both groups deny what the other has with them from truth, and this is so that they can give victory to their own opinion, whereas they believe it is only them who are upon the truth, and that everyone else is upon falsehood. This is in confliction with the truth, and impermissible. Look what he says, Sheikh Salih Hafidhullah Ta'ala. What is obligatory is to acknowledge what others have of the truth. What? And to clarify what they have from falsehood. And to clarify وَبَيَانُ مَا عِنْدَهُ مِنَ الْبَاطِلِ, and to clarify what they have from falsehood. This is fairness and this is justice. So again, where's Dr. Tahir's clarification of what this institution has of falsehood? If he claims that they have good, and they started this organization to bring apostates back to Islam, and that 54% of people accepted Islam after 9/11 apostated from Islam, as Dr. Tahir, he quotes some researcher. And by the way, we like to see that statistic and the research that supports that, as he uses to claim this is the reason why Yaqeen started this institution, the reason why he's working with them. We like to see that research, the research that supports that 54% of people who accepted Islam after 9/11 apostated from Islam. We like to see that. But in any case, where is Dr. Tahir's clarification of their numerous affairs of falsehood and misguidance? So having said that, we have the following observations on Dr. Wyatt's istidlal, his use of evidence from the ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah in defense of the Ikhwani Institute Al-Yaqeen. So number one, if you were to assert that this organization has with it good, then it's clear that they also have many major mistakes. Mistakes in the fundamentals of the religion. So from the fundamental errors of the Yaqeen Institute is their promotion of the articles that call upon Muslims to engage with the LGBT community and cooperate with this movement when it comes to a common cause. Also from the errors of Al-Yaqeen Institute is Omar Suleiman's criticism of the Muslim rulers from his social media account. He said, quoting, "The only reformers in Saudi Arabia are the ones rotting in prison cells." Yani alluding to that, the rulers in Saudi Arabia, the authorities, that they imprison reformers. That they imprison people who are in reality shouldn't be imprisoned. They're reformers. And he said this in defense of a person of innovation, Salman al-Auda, who has been deemed an innovator by the major scholars of this time. Also, what is understood from his statement is that the scholars of the Sunnah, Al-Fawzan, Al-Luhaydan, the Mufti Abdul Aziz Al-Sheikh, who are not in prison, it is understood that he doesn't see those scholars to be reformers, when in actuality, they are callers to pure Tawheed and Sunnah. Also from the errors of Al-Yaqeen Institute and the fundamentals in the religion is their sitting and cooperating with many different types of people in innovation, Sufis, liberalists, etc. Imam Ahmad mentioned that from the foundations of the Sunnah is tark al-julus ma ahl ahwa ma ahl bid'i wal ahwa, abandoning sitting with the people of innovation and desires. So an example of those who they align themselves with is one of their members by the name of Dr. Jonathan Brown. Jonathan Brown says that he supports the right for other people to insult our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A'udhu billah.
You know, I'm more pro-speech, free speech than any of this. I fully support the right of people to actually insult the Prophet in the United States because I think that's the best regime for human happiness. Other questions?
He also says that the Qadianis are Muslims. The Qadianis, they're a group who say that there's a messenger after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is an error in the fundamentals of Islam. Dr. Jonathan Brown also endorses a translation of the Quran that distorts the attributes of Allah and has a subtle call to the oneness of religion, meaning that Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, they're all one and the same. So again, Dr. Tahir, if your claim is that you acknowledge the good that these people have, if we were to submit that they have good, where's your rebuke of their public errors in the fundamentals of the religion? As the Imam and Mufti Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, he mentioned. And where's your knowledge and acknowledgement that whatever opposes the Quran and Sunnah from either path is falsehood? As Shaykh al-Islam mentioned as an explanation to that ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah. The second matter, why don't we hear this same defense publicly for the people of Sunnah? Why don't we hear you encourage the people to acknowledge what the people of Sunnah have from truth? And the unadulterated truth is with Ahl Sunnah, meaning as a body. Not just with one individual, but as a body, the unadulterated truth is with Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and this time they're the Salafis. Did you quote that ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah? When the individual Jonathan Brown said, and I quote, Madkhalis have the least integrity of any people I know in the entire world. They're at the bottom of the scale. Because based upon your istidlal, Dr. Tahir, with the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, Jonathan Brown has fallen into this. When he said, Madkhalis have the least integrity of any people I know in the entire world. They're at the bottom of the scale. He's fallen into this. And in reality, the people of Sunnah whom you imply have not fallen into this. No one has ever said there's not a shred of knowledge with such and such group. Although when refuting errors, we don't have to mention any good that a person may have. This is not a condition. We do not have to make al-muwazana and praise them for their good, although they may have good with them. They may have some truth with them. The third matter, while we're on this topic of those internal matters mentioned by Shaykh al-Islam and Iqtida, in which some of this ummah have resembled the people of the book, let's speak about the affair of kitman al-ilm, as Shaykh al-Islam mentions. In the same context of the ayat that you quoted, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he mentions, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ لَتُبَيِّنُونَهُ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَكْتُمُونَهُ فَنَبَذُوهُ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ. Now, in the statement of Allah, when Allah mentions, and remember when Allah took a covenant from those who were given the scripture to make it known and clear to mankind and not to hide it, but they threw it away behind their backs. And likewise Allah said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَكْتُمُونَ مَا أَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالْهُدَى. Verily those who conceal the proofs, evidences, and the guidance which we have sent down. And he said, subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَكْتُمُونَ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ. Verily those who conceal what Allah sent down of the book. Shaykh al-Islam says, so Allah described the Jews with concealing knowledge. Sometimes out of stinginess. Other times seeking the worldly matters in exchange for it. And other times out of fear that if they make that knowledge known, it will be used as a proof against them. He said, some groups known to have knowledge have been afflicted with this. Sometimes they conceal knowledge out of stinginess and dislike that others obtain some of the excellence obtained by them. Or sometimes seeking leadership or wealth in exchange for concealing it. They are afraid that if they make that knowledge known, their leadership or wealth will diminish. To the end of the kalam of Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. So we asked Dr. Tahir, Wyatt, why do you conceal knowledge regarding the truth of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin and their deviants? Why do you conceal knowledge regarding the deviants of the WD Muhammad community? Why do you conceal knowledge regarding the kufr of the Nation of Islam? After all, you're a doctor. You have a degree in Aqeedah from the prestigious university, Islamic University of Medina. They do not teach the Aqeedah of the WD Muhammad. They do not teach the manhaj of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin. And you know this well. If you truly wanted good for your followers and those who have a good opinion of you, then teach them the correct Aqeedah and manhaj. Not asking for them one penny, but only desiring good for the Muslims. لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. We do not seek from you any thanks or any reward. The fourth matter, if we want to talk about some of those matters which some from this ummah fell into, resembling the people of the book, Ahl Kitab. Let's talk about Allah criticizing the disbelievers for distorting and misrepresenting the meanings behind what he revealed. Because Shaykh al-Islam also mentioned this in the same context in Iqtida, from where you quoted that ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah mentions in his book regarding Ahl al-Kitab, يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَنْ مَوَاضِعِهِ. And likewise Allah mentions, يَلْوُونَ أَلْسِنَتَهُمْ بِالْكِتَابِ لِتَحْسَبُوهُ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ وَمَا هُوَ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ. The first ayah, يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَنْ مَوَاضِعِهِ. There are some who displace words from their rightful places. And the next ayah, يَلْوُونَ أَلْسِنَتَهُمْ بِالْكِتَابِ لِتَحْسَبُوهُ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ وَمَا هُوَ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ. Among them is a party who distort the book with their tongues, so that you may think it is from the book, but is not from the book. Shaykh al-Islam, he says, this distortion has been explained to mean tampering with the revelation itself and distortion of its meanings. As for distortion of its meanings, this is plentiful, and groups from this ummah have been tested with this. And groups from this ummah have been tested with this. And this is the same thing you did with the verse from Surah Al-Baqarah. وقالت اليهود ليست النصارى على شيء وقالت النصارى ليست اليهود على شيء. And the Jews say the Christians follow nothing, and the Christians say the Jews follow nothing. This is the same thing that you did with this verse, distorting its proper understanding, insinuating that we must acknowledge the efforts of the groups of partisanship, and that because they may have some truth with them, this necessitates a ta'awun, that they must be cooperated with. And this is falsehood. What is correct is that if a group or a person who opposes Ahl Sunnah says a word of truth that coincides with Quran and Sunnah, if we're asked about it, we say, nah, that's truth. Why? Because it coincides with Quran and Sunnah. But that does not necessitate that we work with them. If that was the case, then Ahl Kitab themselves, they may say words that coincide with what is established in the Quran or in the Sunnah. Does that in turn necessitate that we cooperate with Ahl Kitab in matters of the religion? No. Likewise, even though the people of innovation may say words of truth, this does not necessitate that we work with them for dawah purposes, as you, Dr. Tahir, tried to assert with the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah. Otherwise, they have fell into what the Jews and Christians have fell into. And this matter was not explained like this by Shaykh al-Islam himself, nor was it understood by the Imams of the religion, like the Mufti and Imam Abdul Aziz ibn Baz. So here, you have fallen into misrepresenting the words of Allah, in that imitating Ahlul Kitab. So upon you, Dr. Tahir, is to repent to Allah openly for this, just as you said this in a public setting. So in closing, and this is for the common listener and the seeker of truth, criticizing and abandoning sitting with and taking from the people of falsehood is not considered rejecting what they have from truth. Again, criticizing and abandoning sitting with the people of falsehood is not considered rejecting what they have of truth, but rather abandoning the people of innovation is from the fundamentals of the religion, and protecting one's heart from hearing their doubts is what the Salaf of this ummah did. And the Salaf did not cooperate with them for the purpose of da'wah. There were Imams in Hadith who went astray. Ya'qub ibn Shayba was an Imam in Hadith. He had a musnad of around 30 volumes. Al-Dhahabi said, if he had completed it, it would have come out to 100 volumes. He was no miskeen, like Umar Sulaiman, who Tahir calls Sheikh Umar Sulaiman. He was an Imam in Hadith, Ya'qub ibn Shayba. But when he didn't take a position as it relates to the Quran not being created, he made waqf. What was the position of the Imams of Hadith? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Or was it using the ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah that Tahir used? Well, he has a voluminous musnad. We can't abandon that. We can't abandon that. We can't reject that which he has from good. La. Abu Abdullah Ahmad ibn Hanbali said, Mubtadi'un sahib hawa. He was abandoned, innovator, person of desires. He was left by Ahl Hadith. And we would like to close this with the words of the Shaykh al-Allama Ubayd ibn Abdullah al-Jabiri, Hafidhahullah ta'ala. And this is a very important principle. He said in his book, his treatise, Al-Hadd al-Fasil Bain Ahl al-Sunnah wa Ahl al-Batil, الحق يقبل ممن جاء به ولكن ليس كل من أصاب الحق هو إماما في الحق. فالشيطان الذي علم أبا هريرة رضي الله عنه آية الكرسي قال فيه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم صدقك وهو كذوب. والحبر اليهودي الذي قال يا أبا القاسم إنا نجد في التوراة أن الله يحمل السماوات على أصبع. الحديث كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يسبح يقول سبحان الله سبحان الله ويضحك حتى بدت أنيابه تصديقا للخبر. فالقائل الحق يصدق، لكن القائلون بالحق أقسام، منهم صاحب السنة الذي هو منا ونحن منه، ومنهم صاحب البدعة الكافر، ومنهم الكافر. هذه القاعدة صحيحة ما دامت بالقيد الذي ذكرت، فنقبل الحق من قاله، ولكن لا نأخذه إلا عن أهل السنة، فهذا الصحيح. Sheikh Ubaid mentions, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, the truth is accepted from the one who presents it. However, not everyone who speaks with the truth is an imam concerning the truth. The Prophet ﷺ said regarding Shaitan, who taught Abu Hurairah Ayat al-Kursi, he told the truth, but he's a liar. Also the Jewish rabbi who said, O Abu Qasim, we find in the Torah that Allah will carry the heavens on one finger to the end of the hadith. And the Prophet smiled until you could see his teeth, affirming the truth mentioned by this rabbi. Therefore, whoever speaks the truth, it is accepted. However, those who speak the truth are of different categories. A, the person of Sunnah, and we are one and the same. B, the person of innovation, and C, the disbeliever. So we accept the truth from whoever speaks it. However, we do not seek knowledge of the truth except from the people of Sunnah. So the person of that's ending the quote of Sheikh Ubaid Hafidhullah Ta'ala. So the person of misguidance may speak a word of truth. If we're asked about it, we say, yes, that's the haqq. Why? Because it coincides with what we know from the principles of the Quran and Sunnah. But does that mean we seek knowledge from that person just because he or she said a word of truth? La. Ahl Sunnah only seek knowledge from Ahl Sunnah and not Ahlul Bid'ah. And we only cooperate in da'wah with Ahl Sunnah and not Ahlul Bid'ah. And lastly, I would like to say, ending this recording, صدق الشيخ ربيع في أمر طاهر. The Sheikh Rabi' Hafidhahullah Ta'ala spoke the truth regarding this individual Tahir when he said about him, he allows himself to speak about Salafis, but he won't say a word of truth regarding Al-Ma'ribi and Al-Halabi.
بعد دراسة أرى هذا يرد على السلفية في أمريكا ويؤذيهم، ويؤذي السلفية في بريطانيا، ويمشي مع زاهد، والآن مقاله هذا نشر في كل الخلفيين السلفيين. هذه قرائن تدل على نمط. الأمر الرابع أو الخامس أنه أبى أن يتكلم في أبي الحسن. بارك الله فيك. كيف يسهل عليه الطعن في السلفيين هنا وهناك، ويصعب عليه أن يقول كلمة حق في أبي الحسن؟ بارك الله فيك. تكلم على السلفيين في بريطانيا وعلى السلفيين في أمريكا، ثم يعرض عليه أن يقول كلمة حق في أبي الحسن فيأبى. فكيف تسمح له نفسه أن يحارب السلفيين وتمنعه نفسه أن يقول كلمة الحق في أبي الحسن؟ كان سلفيا ما كان هذا حاله. خلاف هذا الرأي الجديد في المدينة من أناس مخدوعين بالظاهر لا يعرفون حقيقة حاله.
And this is Tahir's affair. And it was Sheikh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala who said about Sheikh Rabi' أنه من أبصر, he said من أبصر الناس بالجماعات وبدخن الجماعات في هذا العصر الأخ الشيخ ربيع بن هادي حفظه الله. من قال له الربيع بن هادي إنه حزبي فسينكشف لكم بعد أيام إنه حزبي ستذكرون ذلك. Sheikh Muqbil rahimahullah, he said about Sheikh Rabi', the most insightful person regarding the groups of partisanship and the plots of the groups of partisanship is the brother Sheikh Rabi' ibn Hadi Hafidhullah. Whoever Sheikh Rabi' says regarding him Hizbi, it will be revealed to you after some time that the person is a Hizbi. You all remember this. And this is the end of the words of Sheikh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala. And this is not because Sheikh Rabi' is ma'soom, infallible. But Sheikh Rabi' Hafidhullah has khibrah, experience as it relates to groups and individuals from the people of his guidance. and he has experience regarding their plots and trickery. And if we look at the reality of Dr. Tahir, hasbi ilmi, according to my knowledge, he has no statements regarding the people of falsehood, whether it be the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, or the Jama'at al-Tabligh, or the WD Muhammad community, or whether it be the other groups of misguidance from among the modern day groups in the Saha who attribute themselves to da'wah and propagating Islam. He has no statements regarding these individuals. However, he allows himself to speak about the people of Sunnah. He spoke about our brothers in Salafi publications. He spoke about our brother Abu Hassan Malik. And he spoke about others from the people of Sunnah. Why is it that he allows himself to speak about the people of Sunnah, but a word cannot be squeezed out of him regarding the groups of innovation and partisanship? And here we have this institute, Al-Yaqeen, who have with them all types of affairs of misguidance, public errors in the fundamentals of the deen. But we have Dr. Tahir here defending this organization and not saying the word of truth regarding their falsehood, their support of the LGBTQ, their members saying it's okay to insult the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Nothing but silence. And this is because this is his reality. Because if we were, for argument's sake, say that there were only personal issues between Dr. Tahir and the well-known cause to Salafiyya. They don't like one another because it's some personal beef stemming from whatever. I don't bang with them. I'm getting on with my da'wah. Fine. But where's your defense for the fundamentals of the religion when they're being violated and doubts are being thrown at them by the likes of Al-Yaqeen, by the likes of Yasir Qadi, Shadid Muhammad? Why don't we see the doctor come out and defend the core principles of the deen, the fundamentals of the religion, the call to tawheed and warning against shirk from those who belittle this? That is impermissible to speak about the Wali al-Amr, the Muslim ruler. The kufr of those who believe that there's a prophet or messenger after Muhammad ibn Abdullah. The kufr of those, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The kufr of those who reject what is come in the Quran from the affairs of the unseen. That the Salaf had consensus on not cooperating with the people of innovation. Why aren't these usul clearly manifest in his da'wah? So his affair is what it is. And this is what Al-Allama al-Shaykh Rabi' Hafidhahullah Ta'ala alluded to roughly 10 years ago in his warning from Dr. Tahir. And it continues to become manifest over the days, months, and weeks. And this shows us that the barakah, the blessings, is with sticking to the ulama al-kibar, the major scholars, and listening to their advices, and not belittling them, and not belittling their advices, as many have done in this time. And with this will end. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.